All right. So we are live. Let me pull up the presentation here. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Seagate Works with an X webinar. I'm here with Danny Lim from Seagate Technology in Singapore. Danny, you
Hi,
want to say hi?
everyone.
Danny has woken up extremely early to talk to us. It's like it's 6 a.m. now, right? So Danny's been up and he hasn't had coffee, so give him a break if he says anything wrong.
Now I have a glass of water, so it's good. It's good for me.
So we're gonna wait a few minutes to let everybody join. We got a lot of registrations today, so we're gonna let everybody join. In the meantime, there is chat and there is QA on the webinar. So feel free to ask questions along the way in the chat and the QA, and I'll interrupt Danny from time to time to ask him those questions, or you can hold your questions to the end and we'll have a Q&A session then. But the webinar is going to be 1 hour, and we have fancy Seagate Works with an X backgrounds that I wanted to point out. So
Really
we
nice.
are going to be on video today, so you can see us make all of our errors live. So so a few minutes and we will get started. Maybe another minute. So how's the weather in Singapore, Danny?
Oh, it's okay. It's been like raining recently. Yeah, I'm not sure that you've seen the. I mean, there was a cloud. There was a cloud, right? Like what we call rain cloud. I mean, I got a call from my colleague saying, I kind of saw like tsunami, but the cloud was like tsunami, like it
Oh,
was raining.
it was a front, a cloud front
Yeah,
coming.
yeah. So a lot of places flooded. So it was okay. I mean, not too bad. I guess this is right now a rainy season. So we only have it's either raining or it's the super extremely hot. So that's the only two. But
Raining and hot is pretty much Singapore. It's either
yeah,
it's hot and it's wet. Like
yes,
that's like,
exactly. And you perspire, right? You
but
when
it's
you when you
worse than like the summer, man. Like Singapore, I remember going there in like August and like you walk outside and you're already sweating. Like just the moment you step outside.
Yeah, that's it. That's Southeast Asia. I mean, generally, right? If you go out, I mean, especially Singapore, Malaysia, yeah, I mean, Thailand is it's very hot and humid.
A lot of linen wearing.
Yeah, yeah. Just some people. I mean, a lot of people just don't like the feeling. It's like when you go up, your whole like shirt is like kind of wet and it's like sticky. But
Absolutely.
yeah,
All right, I think we can get started. So, like I
great.
said, welcome to the Seagate Works with NX. We have Danny Lamb. He's the Global Business Development Manager for Seagate Technology and Surveillance. And Danny's going to go over first a little bit about or a lot about the Seagate technologies right now that that they have for surveillance systems and applications. And then after that, Danny and I and the Seagate team, the Network Optics team, and a company called Chronicles, we actually did a stress test involving 1,000 HD cameras and 1,000 4K cameras, all recording into a single Seagate 5U84 network attached storage array. And we're going to go over kind of what we did and like what the results of those tests were, and it's going to be pretty cool. So, Danny, over to
Yep.
you. Um, Let me go ahead. You tell me when to change the slide since I'm driving.
Okay, go ahead. Thanks, Tony. Hi, good afternoon, everyone, or good evening if you're from Europe. So first of all, thanks for the opportunity, Tony and the Network Optics teams for inviting me for this the webinar. So let me quickly just introduce myself. I'm Danny. I'm based in Singapore. I'm the Global Business Development Lead for Seagate, focusing on video surveillance. I think in my deck, I'm going to focus more, sharing more about where the trends is, and then where Seagate is heading, and then share a little bit more about our portfolio as well as our offering and solutions. Right, especially I'm very excited to talk a little bit more about things that's beyond the hard disk drive, where everybody knows. We'll also talk about our storage system portfolio. So without further ado, let's get started. So Tony, next slide, please. I want to talk about global data explosion. So everyone knows that data is ever exploding, right? And the explosion of data comes from unstructured data. So what is unstructured data? Unstructured data consists of video, your photos, a lot of this large data set that's not standard. It can be a lot, very large data sets, can be a small data sets, but again, it's unstructured. We, based on the recent work or recent partnership that we had with IDC, right? I mean, IDC predicted that there will be 175 zettabytes be created, right, by the year 2025. So a lot of people might ask, what the heck is zettabytes? One zettabyte, yeah, 1 zettabyte. I know terabyte, I know gigabyte. What is zettabyte? So zettabytes, 1 zettabyte is 1 billion terabyte. Just to set a context, right? Everybody know terabyte. So 175 zettabyte, that's a lot, right? That's a lot. You are talking about a lot of storage, sorry, a lot of data. But however, we know that all the data is being created, not necessarily means all the data will be stored, right? In fact, the world is going to only store 10% of the data, right? But think about it, there's a lot of potential with the data being created. But why the world is only storing, let's say, 10% of the data? There are many reasons. The main reasons probably because of the cost of storage, right? The data management complexity, and there are other things that a lot of CIO, a lot of companies has been thinking of. The matter of fact is, recently when we did our DataSphere event, right, which you can go to our website and do a on-demand playback, a lot of the CIO says that really, they say, if the company is able to utilize the data more, right? We have companies that can utilize the data like 30%, right, rather than 10%. It actually resulted in increase of profits, increase of revenue, because the data is so important, right? But when it comes to video surveillance context, video has a lot of insights. But in our surveillance market, a lot of video today, the way how the use cases works is I'll store, right? And after a while, if there's not being used, I just recycle it, right? So obviously there's a lot of potential over here. Next slide, please. So we know that the world is actually using data from video, especially video right now, very differently. In fact, not only video surveillance, but every aspect, right? Even corporate, we actually like Seagate, we also use a lot of video recording right now to generate, content and all those things. So everyone is using video very, very differently. And surveillance is actually evolving as well, right? With all the technologies out there. And I think today we have all the experts here that knows very well about the technology in the market. So I'll focus a lot more on the storage and the data side. Next slide. So just to share a little bit story about Seagate. So Seagate, we are more than 40 years in the business and being known mostly by all as a hard disk drive company. But we are definitely more than that. I mean, of course, we kind of like a more than $10 billion company. We have more than 40,000 people globally. So Seagate, our vision on our role here is really we wanted to craft the data sphere, right? We want to craft the data sphere. We know that data is potential, but we also know that there are a lot of challenges when people wanted to store more, right? Because of the cost associated with it, the complexity, the data management, right? The data protection. There are many aspects that we look into, the data security. So Seagate really, we want to utilize the technology that we have created and developed, right? To kind of integrate it into our solutions, be it the solutions that you've been buying from us today, right? You've been working with us from today from the drive perspective, to really the system level where you see some of the OEMs is using in their server or storage or equipment. So there are many technologies that we developed that we believe that is going to help address those aspects that I've highlighted earlier on. Next slide. Okay, so everybody knows Seagate as a hard disk drive vendor or hard disk drive manufacturers. So I want to share a little bit more about the other side of Seagate, right? So Seagate, in fact, not a lot of people knows that we are also one of the key hidden giant or key provider of storage systems, enterprise storage systems in the market. Okay, so for more than 30 years, we have been shipping more than 1 million systems, storage systems that you see over here, into the market, into the market. But our longest go to market, I mean, for the longest time, our go to market has always been OEM, and we sell our storage systems to the OEM under their brand, right? If you have used any of this type of storage out there that is enterprise brand, I mean, that is enterprise that is actually offered by big OEMs, like some of this brand out there, the very likelihood that is actually our products, because in the enterprise storage space, there's only a few players that actually has the capability to build the end-to-end solution.
So you don't need to name them, Danny, right?
I don't need to name them, but there are only a few. But there are only a few. Basically, the few key guys out there that sell to the enterprise space, that is big OEMs, right? I think that the one basically everybody knows that. So what I want to emphasize is Seagate is also the only company that is vertically integrated. So why vertically integrated is very important, because we build anything from the controllers inside the drives, to the media, to the drives, to the box, to the controller in the storage system. A lot of this is different from the go-to-market from the OEM, because OEM, they will actually try to optimize the supply chain and all those things. So very often they will not first jump into the latest technology and use it. They will actually have a period of time of adoption. But for us, it's our own products. We have to do, I mean, I will always say this, we have to do our own, we have to consume our own dog food, right? Use our own technology. So very often we will always be the first to go to market with a new technology. So in fact, I think in the coming days, you will see a lot more announcement when it comes to solutions that are using our own technology into our storage system like this.
Hey,
And the most
Danny, I have a question. How long does it take for you guys to bring a new technology, like one of these pieces of technology, to market?
Well, so our cycle for some of the product refresh maybe range from a year, right, to a year plus. It depends on what type of solution, right? Like recently we were talking about like HAMR, right? HAMR is very, very long time, because as you know, the drive technology has comes to a stage where you need to change a new technology in order for you to go up to like a highest capacity. So we have HAMR. HAMR, instead of using the normal read-write heads, right? We really use laser and quickly heat up the media and install and record data, and quickly cool it down, and then so we can put more data into the storage, the drives. But that technology we've been doing for many years, right? Because it's a really different technology. And finally, we've been announcing that end of this year, we'll be rolling out our first HAMR drives, right? I mean, the HAMR technology can bring the capacity per drive to 60 terabyte. 60 terabyte. That's a huge leap, because a lot of this technology, like data centers, cloud, they require a lot of high capacity storage, right? Because of the increase of data. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Next slide, please. I want to talk a little bit more about our portfolio, just a very high level. So as you know, Seagate, well, we have solutions from the edge to the cloud, right? We don't have any solution for camera at this point of time, because I mean that's we only focus on storage devices and storage system. So when it comes to storage devices, we have a portfolio of storage devices like our Skyhawk and Skyhawk AI drive. If you are currently building an NVR or using an NVR, right, or a DVR or server appliance, sorry, a VMS appliance, right, a very likelihood that you will choose the Skyhawk and Skyhawk AI products. So the very big difference is Skyhawk and Skyhawk AI is really optimized for recording, right? 90% is actually optimized for 90% recording. It's 90% sequential. From our context, it's all about sequential, because data comes into the drive very sequentially, right? Sequentially. The difference between Skyhawk and Skyhawk AI, you can think about it as additional highway, additional lane on the highway that actually allow your facial recognition, allow your metadata to actually have more random, right? From our context, that's what we call Skyhawk AI, because we noticed that a lot of AI application right now, because they have to do facial enrollment, they have to do all those things. You have to have, apart from sequential, you have to have another aspect that allow you to do slightly more random performance, right? So we do not want to have a situation where we lose data on all these things. So our Skyhawk AI, which is from 8 terabyte and above, right? All our products from 8 terabyte above will be Skyhawk AI. So actually you get additional better reliability, better performance from our products. And it is suited for most of the application like DVR, NVR, and also appliance NVR as well, right? So the moment you start to go into enterprise server storage, right? Or you talk about mass storage like archive storage, like usually used in the back end or partly at the edge. Then is where we will actually have our Exhaust products. Exhaust is our product that is used to classify enterprise class. Okay, enterprise class. In all the enterprise class, our product is focused on mixed workloads. Mixed workloads mean that you are looking at both sequential and doing very, very well random, because as you know, enterprise-based server and storage is used for multiple applications like database, is used for online processing, is used for a lot of things. And the very big difference between Exhaust and all the enterprise class products is enterprise comes with SaaS interface. Okay, everybody knows SATA. SATA is the most common interface for drives, for hard drives in the client space and even surveillance. But the moment we go to server and storage, most of the big OEMs, they standardize themselves on SAS. So SAS is a dual port. It's actually like a dual highway, right? The benefits is actually it provides the in and out. So basically, an analogy is if you have two lanes, right, the likelihood of accident is lesser, right? Because you have more space to go, right? So actually, SAS actually has a better it has actually better performance, number one, and better better mitigation, right, on the data silent data corruptions. If you look at some of these reliability itself, right? So SAS actually provide that enterprise class level. And then if you talk about Nitro, Nitro is the name that we call our product for our enterprise SSD product. Nitro is used for IOPS, right? If you want IOPS, you want very fast IOPS, which in surveillance space is usually means AI, right? So that's where our Nitro comes in. So Skyhawk, Exhaust, Nitro, these are our three product range that we actually use if you wanted to build your own server or storage or your NVR when it comes to component.
So IOPS, Danny, by the way, just for these guys, is input and output operations per second.
Exactly.
So basically, if you have a lot of interaction with that data, like reading and writing from it, or writing and reading from it, right? Then you want to have to have a high IOPS. So that would be like a large, like a safe city type situation where you've got everything, like everybody logging in to like a cloud-based centralized system. Yep. With lots of AI, lots of adjacent data that's being stored.
You're right. Well, the way to measure IOPS and also the way to measure sequential is very different, right? Sequential is usually measured by megabytes per second or whatever, right? When it comes to IOPS, is usually 1,600K, or it's very different because you are talking about the number of operation input output, right, per second.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Now I want to talk about our enterprise storage system portfolio, right? Of course, our enterprise storage system portfolio is not to replace an NVR, DVR, right? We are actually a storage systems. It actually can be used. I'll talk more about the use cases in the next few slides. But we have enterprise storage, which focus on becomes a centralized storage for your multiple server. I know like NevoOptics or your solutions, you allow customers to either use a virtualized, either use a very simple server on even a small, very light, compute devices. For us, we are a centralized storage that allow you to take in all the data, right, and make sure that we protect the data very well. So Seagate, we have a SAN storage, which is suited for the centralized high performance type of application. And then we have also AFA. AFA stands for all flash array. But all flash array is really it's really not very common in the video surveillance space because a lot of them are being used for database processing. A lot of e-commerce is using that, right? And last but not least, JBot. So JBot is where you want to have a massive capacity of storage that you want to extend as as an extension to your recording or your data centers and all these things, archiving, right? You want a very large storage that is available for you. So we have products that is meant for that. So I will talk about the use cases in the next few slides when it comes to our product for system. I think the devices side is pretty clear because that's the business that we've been driving for the longest time, right? So I think we will continue to work very closely with partners. For systems, I think today is an opportunity for us to share a little bit more about that as well. Next slide. Okay, let me just give you a little bit more information about storage system portfolio. So our storage system portfolio is very simple. We don't have a lot of range of products. We only have 3 categories of products. We have an Exos E, stand for expansion. That's our JBOD portfolio. We have our Exos X, which is a RAID storage. It's a SAN storage, like a block storage. And we have our Exos application platform, AP, which stands for application platform. What is application platform? Application platform is basically a storage with 2 servers on the storage, all in one. But I will talk about AP because that's not what you've been thinking of, right? You might be thinking of, can I install an NX Witness on that storage itself? No, it's not for that application. I will talk about use case later, right? So, but Exos E, the storage JBOD, if you look at that, we have entry level, like 2U12 bay. Then we have high density 5U84 bay. And we have the world largest density JBOD, which is the 4U 106 drives in one chassis. If 16 terabyte, you're getting 1.7 petabyte in just one box. That's a lot of data, right? So this allowed you to store a lot more. And then because of the density of the storage, it takes a lot of engineering technology because you're literally seeing that there's 100 overdrive operating at the same time, right? There are only a handful of players that can do more than 100 drive chassis. And definitely, certainly Seagate is the only one that can actually build such a high density chassis with our own drives. Okay, we are the only one.
So JBOD stands for just a bunch of disks, right?
Just a bunch of disks or just a bunch of drive. You're right.
But they're not like set up like RAID configuration or anything. I literally just, this is how many disks you got. This is how much storage space you can use.
Exactly. So if let's say today you have a server, right? You have a HBA, host bus adapter, and that just connect to this JBOD, there's no data protection, just to begin with. But if your RAID controller support external SAS, right, that you want to connect to the JBOD, yes, that will provide a RAID redundancy that is just an extension to your storage in your box, for example.
Yep.
Then next, I have a RAID storage, which is our SAN storage. I'll talk a little bit more about why SAN in surveillance, because very often we see a lot of customers think about using a server and all-in-one server. There are always pro and cons on that, right? So Exos X stands for our RAID storage. Basically, our RAID storage or our SAN storage. We also have 2 flavors. We have 2U12 and 5U84. Very simple. We don't have. If you look at the look and feel of all these boxes, it's all the same, right? That's because we actually adopt a modular design. So you can mix and match the component and it becomes a JBOD, a SAN storage, or AP. So it's all very standardized, right? And we have an Exos AP, which is 2U12, 5U84, and 4U100. So why 100? We are using the 4U106 chassis, but we actually consume, the blade server consume part of it. So we can only use 100 drives, okay? Surveillance, usually we see a lot of, next slide please. Surveillance, we usually see a lot more customers use JBOD and SAN storage. So now let's talk about surveillance context, right? How some of the products being used. In an actual less than 500 cameras type of environment, as I mentioned, we have customers that want to use server and a JBOD as an extension. That's very straightforward. That means you have a server with NX Witness, then you want to connect to our JBOD, right? In fact, the JBOD, you can actually connect more than one server, right? But you can only connect to a limited server, probably 2 or less than 3, right? But if let's say you want to have multiple server, right? You can actually have multiple server using a switch, right? Connect to a SAN storage, and our SAN storage, like a 2U12, can offer you expansion up to 768 terabytes. In most of the cases, like a surveillance project, that is good. That is good enough, right? You don't need petabytes of projects in most of the cases, but it allows you to have scalability. Okay, so our SAN storage can actually expand up to like 10 if you want to. Well, in the larger deployment, right, like more than 1,000 cameras, a lot of people right now talk about HCI, hyper-converged infrastructure. So hyper-converged infrastructure is basically nothing but server, network, storage, all in one, right? So in this space, some of the customers, they instead of using a server storage, they might be using our JBOD, right, as an extension to the server, and they build a HCI node, right? But in a more typical space, which we today will talk about, is really the multiple server to a SAN storage 5U84 type of environment, which later, Tony will talk about. Whether your server is a physical server or virtualized, it doesn't matter, right? So this typical environment is multiple server or multiple devices. Okay, the next one, please. And in an even larger scale, we have started to see customers deploying what they call cloud solution or private cloud solution. But what is private cloud solution? Most of the time, private cloud is also very closely associated with software-defined storage. In our surveillance market, I believe that we are a couple of years slower than IT. In IT space, a lot of them are actually already started to use software to define the storage, software to manage everything. So that's why in this space, you have people like SUSE, Red Hat, Ceph. They are using software on the server, resides on the server to manage the storage. The good thing about this type of deployment is scale out. You can actually scale unlimited, right? Maybe you are building a Visa solution. A Visa solution, you cannot say, sorry, I need to stop at 200 terabyte. No. A Visa solutions, like if you sell as a service to your customers, you really want to be able to scale to petabytes and petabytes because your storage will be on demand, right? So this is kind of a solution that you can use. So in a typical solution, customers might just use our JBOD, or they might want to use our application platform where they install the software-defined storage software on our server, on the storage itself, right? So it provides a very elegant all-in-one solution. But you still need a server with a NX Witness VMS on top of it. Okay.
Powered by NX. So just to back this up a little bit, right? So mid-range here, server plus JBOD. This in our experience would be you have a server that's recording a lot of high-res cameras, maybe multi-sensor devices, and you want to just add some additional storage to that server for like backup or for longer-term archiving, right?
That's right.
In the second version of it, you're doing the same thing on the first column here. On the second column, though, you're able to kind of link them all together, like what we're going to show with the test that we did, where you could have local storage, plus you could have centralized storage. You can be storing at 2 different locations all at the same time if you wanted to, or you could even create like a little mini private cloud for your customers, like large campus projects. I'm trying to think, say safe city type applications where you got a lot of cameras all coming back to one point and you got the network to support it. And the third solution is really for companies almost like Network Optics, who are creating VSaaS solutions that would offer like cloud-based storage as part of their thing. And in this instance, in the first 2 instances, the operating system is what's controlling what you're writing to the storage devices, right? And in the third instance, it's object-based storage, meaning like the software itself defines how to store this object, where to put it, and it makes it a lot more transportable, so that if you lose one of your servers or whatever, based off of your software stack, then you probably got high availability, scalability stuff going on. So all those objects will still be available somewhere else in your storage network as a redundant copy or something like that. So your software will never lose that video, right?
Yeah. It's a different concept than the traditional enterprise way of storing.
Right. the third tier requires like participation by software vendors like Network Optics in order to get it to use that, right?
Yeah, you need participation for vendors like Network Optics. You also need the software-defined storage vendors, like some of the likes of Nutanix or the likes of SUSE, Ceph, and all these companies, because they are like
They're
they sit
middleware basically, right?
a middleware, or they are like a operating system, right?
Yeah.
But they are the one that define and manage the fleet of storage out there, right? So in short, in traditional enterprise storage space, you have controller in your storage. There is hardware, right? That
Yep.
manage that. But here is the software that manage that. So it's
Gotcha. All right.
Yep. Let's talk about integration with Network Optics. Then later on, Tony will talk about more about our testing. So on the drive side, so for a while, Seagate has been integrating our health management, right, with Network Optics. So if today you are powered by NX partners, so basically there's opportunity for us to work together and to explore out the solutions with the health management. So health management is basically a snapshot of the health of the drive, and basically able to have an alert and alarm, right, on if there's any problem with the drive itself. But what I really want to talk about is recently, right? Recently, we also rolled out all our Skyhawk drive. If today you are buying our Skyhawk drive and Skyhawk AI drive, right, more than 2 terabyte above, our product right now also comes with a free integrated data recovery services. Okay, so basically, if you buy our drive, it comes together with a warranty. If the drive failed because of many reasons, because of sabotage and because of fire, flood, and all those things, send it back to us. We'll do the data recovery and we'll return back to you. It's part of the drive. We do not charge additional. So because Seagate is the only company that has our own data recovery facility, so we can actually do it. And we've been doing this for a while. It's just that for the many years we've been doing it as a service that's chargeable. And at the same time, we also roll out as something like a service plan, right? But right now, we think that surveillance is a great importance, and especially to SI, is a value for your customers, because you can actually bundle it with your maintenance contract, put it together, right? It's a value that you can go out and deliver to your customer.
That's pretty significant. So if you use the Seagate Skyhawk drives and one of your drives fails for some reason, and your customer has some very important video on that, then you can send it back to Seagate, and Seagate will attempt to recover it, or will you can't guarantee recovery on all of it, right?
So our success rate is we always say this, right? Our success rate is more than 90%. Yep. Our recovery success rate, but there's always no guarantee in the sense that I can recover everything, because in some instance where there's a media scratch and all these things, we will help recover to what we can. And just to let you all know as well, when we say data recovery, we means any data recovery in any configuration. If you're using a RAID, you are using a single drive, it doesn't matter, right? If you go out and check RAID recovery, most data recovery vendor will charge very, very, very expensive.
Yeah, I was about to say, I remember quoting a customer data recovery one time on a drive, and it was insane. It was just one drive, and it was totally insane. It was like, is it really worth that? So
exactly. So I think that's one key thing. If you have more information that you need, reach out to us, or you're already buying from some of our partners that use Seagate, ask them about it, right? So I think we just roll it out like in October, right? So it's starting now.
Okay, cool.
Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about the centralized video storage later. So let's move on. I have just a couple of slides to talk about our value proposition. Why you should consider network storage. I think that's a good thing about scalability. You're not putting all into one basket where server is a single point of failure, right? Because the SAN storage is usually active, dual controllers, very high performance, very high reliability, a very scalable performance. I think the problem is if you have a lot of camera, you never know what you want to add, when you want to add AI to it, right? So the workload might change. A lot of things might increase as well. That to the storage is all about increasing workloads. And last but not least is total cost of ownership. I think SAN storage can provide high throughput performance, and it provides high availability and durability for your storage, for your requirement. And it's easy to manage. just let me tell you, our storage system, you can provision a storage after you've been trained within 5 minutes. It's not that difficult. A lot of people think that SAN storage, wow, it's like enterprise class, it's so difficult. 5 minutes is what you need to set up our storage system, right? When it comes to provisioning the storage, set up a space for you to do recording, data protection. It's very simple. So it's not that difficult because we think that it's important for us to make it easy in terms of our management. Next slide, please. So quickly go through this. Every market has a different requirement. I still see a lot of requirement for DVR, NVR, which we are selling a lot. I think there are more requirements for NVR, VMS appliance, like what NetworkPix and you've been working on with a lot of the partners. And definitely a lot of opportunities when it comes to technologies like centralized storage in the commercial enterprise market. Next slide. So I think everybody knows that data is critical, so is storage. More ever, I think a lot of customers are looking into video data differently right now, as I mentioned. I think video data is being used for more than just security. In fact, that's what all of us wanted to achieve. If you today, all of us is in video surveillance market, we want customers to see more of this as an ROI rather than as a deterrent, right? Because deterrent and use it when you need to use it, customers don't spend a lot of money. So we want customers to have ROI. So that's what everybody in the market ecosystem will need to drive together. Next slide. Yeah, I want to just quickly speed up. I just want to talk briefly about our competitive advantage when it comes to our storage system, our enterprise portfolio. Simple, 4 pillars. It's called SAFE, S-A-F-E. So SAFE means S stands for streaming optimized. So our storage system is all optimized for streaming because streaming requires 2 things. It requires your drive to be optimized for sequential, your drive to be high performance and optimized for that application. And secondly, is really your own controller, right? We build everything from our own. We have a technology called RealStream where we prioritize the stream when your stream coming in. So that allow us to ensure there's no lost frame. We'll show on our testing later what does that mean, okay? Secondly, it's very important. I want to highlight a lot of people actually still use RAID as the main form of data redundancy, data protection. It is working and it served its purpose for many years. But as drive becomes larger and larger and larger, just give you an example, 10 terabyte. If today you have a drive that failed and you need to do a data rebuild, RAID rebuild on that drive, it takes 55 hours for that drive to rebuild. How about 20 terabyte? A lot more. It's just not viable because the problem is when you do RAID rebuild, everything will be used, a lot of resources will be used to rebuild that drive, right? And your performance of the storage will be impacted.
So every time you have a drive fails in RAID, then you have to put a new drive in. It's going to go through the rebuild process on that. It's going to slow down the rest of the system.
Exactly. So the problem is, it's not going to get shorter, right? So the time. So the only thing that a lot of the other technology, other market is using is a technology called erasure coding, right? We talk about the cloud storage. Most of the cloud storage either use 2 forms of data protection. They use replication or they use erasure coding. In surveillance space, storage is so valuable, right? And so expensive. We cannot replicate, right? If one data replicate 3, that's going to cost you a lot more, right? So that's why erasure coding, it makes a lot of sense because erasure coding is literally spreading the data across. It allocates a space in every drive to do data protection. So when the drive fails, they will actually do a self-healing. So there's no impact to the drives when it comes to your rebuild time. And it provides more than 90% faster rebuild time, right, than RAID. Okay? So I think for us, you can actually freely choose to use a RAID or freely choose to use ADAPT, right? ADAPT is our technology that is built into our controller that provide that type of protection and all those things. The third one is first to market. I mentioned already about this. We just, like, for example, announced 18 terabyte. For you as a customers, as you sell the high density storage and all those things, what you want to do is to offer high density storage at a lower cost, at a lower TCO, we can do that, right? Because we are always going to be the fastest to market with our technology. So I think that allow you to use lower, a higher density per box, right? And lower power, lower heat, lower cooling as well. Last but not least is encryption. So I think encryption is very important, especially in the video surveillance space right now. When you come to government projects, commercial projects, some of them are using FIPS 140-2. In the US, you need TAA certified. By the way, all our drive is TAA certified. You can actually use our products in the government, right? Because our product comes with different flavor of encrypted drives. So encrypted drive has a few advantages. Number one, it doesn't use up your performance of the drive. Number two is because everything is done by the drives. Number two is actually it helps provide instant erase of the data, right? Instant erase of the data. So when you want to retire the data, you can actually erase the data quite fairly quickly and in a secure manner. Okay. So
And
these
the
are the
encryption, is the encryption available only on the Exos and above, or is it on the
Exos and
Seagate?
above, Exos and Nitro. Yeah, Exos and Nitro, not on the Skyhook product. So Tony, I tell you what, I think it's the same. Each of that is actually expanding into each of them, each of the technology. I don't think we want to go through the details. So why don't we jump straight to the testing as well? Because since
Yeah.
it's the same, yeah.
Yeah, so this presentation will be online afterwards if you guys want to look at it in a bit more detail. But we wanted to take some time and cover the stress test that we did. So this summer, we worked together with Seagate and with a company called Chronicles, based out of Singapore, to test a couple different scenarios where we wanted to use the Seagate 5U84 as a central storage device. We also wanted to virtualize, we wanted to run NX Witness VMS or a Powered by NX product in a purely virtual environment, just to see, you know, how this all performs on like a private cloud type application where you've got 1,000 cameras running into a single box, and 1,000 cameras from that are running into a single storage array, right? So it was a pretty simple concept behind the test, and the fun part was we were pretty hands off on it. We gave the Chronicle guys the software. We gave them a couple tips here and there, and then Danny works with them on the storage side, and they set everything up and they had it up and running very quickly with very little assistance needed. So in terms of what we used on that test, from a compute hardware standpoint, we used Dell PowerEdge R740 rack server. It was running Ubuntu, LTS VMs and Windows EMs at the same time. It was emulating 1,000 cameras at a time, depending on which set we had going up. But you can see the processor we had on is 2 times Intel Xeon Gold, 6132 CPUs, and 384 gigs of memory, a 10-gig NIC, and then we had a power switch that was connecting the rack server to the storage device, which we'll go into in a second. I'm not going to get too much into the way that everything was configured, but we put it here in case people were interested on it. But basically, we put VMware ESXi hypervisor on that Dell R740, and then we loaded it up with NX Witness and test camera, and we started generating feeds. So that, of course, the storage array that we used was Seagate 5U84. It had 84 8-terabyte Exos hard drives in it. There's some more information about how it was actually set up in terms of how we configured the storage array. Chronicle set up basically 4 iSCSI ports on each controller. There were 2 storage controllers, so there's 8 iSCSI ports. I created 2 storage pools, each of them with 42 8-terabyte drives, turned on adapt, set up 5 equal size volumes, and then each one on each controller. So you ended up with 10 volumes, and then we mapped each one of those 10 volumes to each one of the 10 NX Witness servers on the server to write to those volumes. And then one thing that I didn't know that I figured out in the report afterwards, Danny, was that they actually pulled the drive to see what would happen, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And there
because
was,
it's all on adapt, so we can pull the
yeah,
drive out, no problem at all.
yeah, I didn't even know that until afterwards when they gave me the report. So they actually pulled the drive during the test to see what would happen to the performance, and there were no disk failures and no frames lost. So the software that we use, like I said, VMware ESXi version 6.7 update 3. We use NX Witness VMS version 4.1. Test Cam is a if you guys aren't familiar, on our support portal, there's a test camera article where we have you can download test camera and you can emulate IP cameras. So if you wanted to do your own testing of hardware and stuff like that, that's a tool that's available to you. We used Ubuntu Linux, which is where the VMs were created for NX Witness. And we use Windows to emulate the cameras. And here's the architecture for how it was kind of all set up. And I'm not sure which device you're on, but to go over it briefly, we had the 5U84 storage array from Seagate. Downstream from that, we had one Dell R740 that was generating all the cameras and also running all the NX VMs at the same time, right? So this is one server that did this entire test, and it's kind of mind blowing to me that it worked. So one server running 10 NX Witness virtual machines and 10 Windows virtual machines with the camera emulator on them. And then those were connected via VM switches and then a physical switch to both the Seagate 5U84 and then also to, we had an internet connection that would connect us to the NX Cloud so that we could log in and check and see how it was going with the test and see the results of the test in real time. So what happened, right? So the first scenario we ran was 1,000 full HD IP cameras. Each test cam virtual machine was configured to generate 100 full HD IP cameras with dual streaming, you know, like we normally do. So a primary stream of 1920 by 1080 and a secondary stream of 480 by 272 at 7 frames per second, the primary stream at 30 frames per second. And then we wanted to use NX Witness to discover all the cameras and record them, right? So we use the NX Witness health monitoring dashboard, like I said earlier, to look at the 24-hour period where we could see what the results were. And we also used, Chronicles also used something called SolarWind network management software to look at the network impact itself, right? And over the course of the 24-hour test we did, we had an average CPU usage. Each one of the VMs was defined 4 virtual CPUs. From the Dell R740. Each one of those NX Witness Ubuntu systems was running at a CPU usage of 43% with 1,000 cameras, 100 cameras apiece. We had an average throughput of 735 megabits per second. And we had 0.001% drop frames. So 99.999% successful frame capture. And I'm pretty sure that 0.001 is was an aberration from the camera emulators, but that's all right. So you can see here, there's a couple of screenshots we took. You can see the number of IOPS that are going on with the machine. If you want to get more details or you're interested in much more details, we can hook you up with the Seagate and the Chronicle guys, and we can get way more into the weeds on this if you guys want to. But general picture is almost 0% drop frames over a 24-hour period, slamming 1,000 full HD cameras plus emulating 1,000 full HD cameras on one Dell server coming into that Seagate 5U84, right? So I remember when we finished the test, the response from Seagate and Chronicles was, this is nothing, right? I think one of your guys on the call was like, this is nothing. We need to crank this up. Right. Yeah. So we originally planned on doing just 1,000 HD cameras, right? Because I think that you guys had done a similar test with one of our competitors a year or so ago with like 700 cameras, HD cameras, and it was at the threshold, yeah, right?
We did about 750 4K at a time previously 2 years ago. It was okay, right? So that's why we wanted to do something more, right? That's why we tested like 1,000 4K.
Right, so you can see the results on a per server basis here. We broke down in terms of like the CPU usage and then the average drop frames per server, right? Now, the second test was 1,000 4K cameras. We had to emulate 1,000 4K dual streaming IP cameras. I'm not sure why my door is opening. Just a second, guys. So, in this instance, we did the same exact setup, but this time we were doing 4K cameras with 3840 by 2160, and then secondary stream of 640 by 360. Same exact setup, but with 4K, right? So we went to an average CPU usage with the 4 virtual CPUs of 89%. And we saw an average throughput that jumped up almost double to 1488, which is expected when you're going from 1080p to 4K. And then we saw an average drop frame rate of 0.005%. So we were 99.995% successful in recording 1,000 cameras, emulating 1,000 cameras, and then sending them to the 5U84 for recording. So
yeah, so if you look at 1.4 megabytes per second, right? So that's
1.4 gigs, 5 gigs, right?
Gig. We have a gig. So we have 5.5. So there's still a lot, because of course in this.
So your throughput of 5U84 is 5.5 gigs, right? Yeah. And we were at 1.5 gigs. So
yeah. The thing is, of course, we didn't include, Tony, right? Which we agree was the analytics and all these things, right? That is maybe coming into the workload as well. So the point is, of course, nobody will fully utilize the throughput, because you need to have a location to your controller to do data protection and all the stuff. But there's still a lot of room, right? Especially for a lot of other workloads to increase.
On the Seagate side, there's a lot of room, right? We were starting to hit the threshold in terms of how many 4K cameras can we emulate and record and stream on one Dell R740. And we were getting close to like the max CPU usage, right?
Yep.
But other than that, I mean, to me, it's amazing because we were emulating 1,000 4K cameras and capturing and writing and reading back, because we were playing it back from the desktop client too, right? I was logging in remotely from Texas and doing it in Singapore while it was going on. So I was just shocked that it would be able to that would be able to do that much on a single Dell R740 with the Seagate device. I think the Seagate device, you can go way further on it, right? So you're basically saying, Danny, that we could attach 3 of the 3,000 cameras 4K to the 5U84, right?
Well, I mean, we will need to test it, but again, I think it might be possible. It's like I don't know, right? It depends on the workload, but I think that it might be possible to
it all depends on the bit rate of the 4K cameras that are connected as well, right?
You're right, and also the if you are adding other workloads, right? Like that comes in, right? There's more than just recording. Yeah.
So here's the per server breakdown. As a whole, you can see CPU usage on the NX5 server was pretty high, but some of them were pretty low as well. So
I think on average, a lot of time when we look at some of the players that are looking at drop frames, what that can be usually is definitely they can tolerate. I mean anything that is up to about 0.7 or 1, but I think 0.0 something is really very, very low. Right.
Well, we calculate drop frames too, not only on like on the capture and streaming, right? But if the camera, for some reason, the emulation itself might be dropping frames, then we'll calculate that as well, right? Yep. So my base assumption here is that Seagate captured everything we threw at it, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, the conclusions of the test were basically that the 5U84 used in an enterprise environment with the like a private cloud application or a super high density IP video system where you've got thousands of cameras and you want to have centralized storage is pretty flawless, right? So the applicability to very large systems and also just the Seagate technology itself has really proven itself from a testing perspective.
Yeah, I think I want to add on is Tony. We can our test was on 5U84, but we can definitely scale we can start from small, right? 2U12, right. Because the controller is exactly the same controller. It's just the number of drive there is different. So you can scale it down and add on more if you want to, or you can start with 1 unit of 5U84. So it depends. It's pretty flexible.
Right, and I'm guessing the 2U12s have the same base technology itself. So like
it's all the same. Yeah,
Yep.
it's all the same consistent. Yep.
So in terms of the density, I think this is important as well because from an integrator perspective, you guys are going to get into higher resolution cameras. You're going to get into longer storage duration needs from the customers. You're going to have AI analytics on top of it that you're going to want to store for longer periods of time as well. So
Yeah, our 584 maximum, you can go for, you can actually attach additional 3 expansion. So you can have actually 4 584, right? That's more than 4 petabytes. So basically, if with 18 terabyte, there's more than 4 petabytes. In most of the projects, because in surveillance, you are not like centralizing everything in one site, right? You actually have sites like Smart City, you actually have few hundred cameras, 1,000 cameras in this site, then you will need the centralized recording. So I think in most of the cases we see it should be good enough, unless you're talking about cloud storage, centralized cloud storage, right? So that's the.
Yeah, there was a couple questions that came in. What codec was being used for testing? I believe it was H.264, Terrence.
Yeah.
We just basically took a clip off of one of our systems and then sent it over to the guys to use that in the emulator. And so you could do the same thing if you use test camera. And then where are the devices manufactured and who makes the controller chips was another question, Danny. I don't know if you want to get into that, but that's another question.
Our factory is in Mexico, Guadalajara, and the chip and of everything from the SoC and ASIC controller from Seagate.
There you go.
Yeah, for the storage system. Yeah. I mean, our market is very interesting because we build it's very vertically integrated. So in the drive, most of the thing is all built by Seagate. We don't outsource, like unlike the semiconductors industry where you have fabless, because it's expensive to build a fab. So a lot of them, they just outsource, right? So for us, we actually build most of the thing ourselves.
Yeah, I didn't even know, like Danny, when you guys said when we went to do this test. I mean, we were talking a little bit before it, obviously, like that led to this test, which is that Seagate made chassis, right?
Yeah.
I was always under the impression that Seagate was a hard drive company. So like
Yeah.
when you guys had said, "Oh, we want to test our chassis," and I was like, "Whose chassis?" And you're like, "Our chassis." I was like, "What? You guys make chassis?" So I mean, for me, it was a question. So there's a couple more questions. So there's no HiSilicon. Was a follow-up question to your?
No. We have, if you want a letter for our storage system, we have a letter that's shown on NDA compliance. That's a good question.
So it's NDA compliant as well.
Yeah.
Anonymous attendee.
Yeah. All our drives, all our storage systems, NDA compliance. We actually have a letter that we can share, right? So if you have any question, reach out to me or reach out to us, and then we can give you more information if required.
So NDA, just in case anybody doesn't know, is the National Defense Authorization Act, right? Which limited some technologies from certain countries being sold inside the United States for United States based government projects, right?
Yeah, because our products are used in government as well. Like, and as I mentioned, we sell to OEM, and OEM sell to government, right? So definitely we are compliant because number one, we are also US company. We need to make sure that we're compliant.
And TAA compliant. You're welcome. Somebody says. All right. So TAA compliant. All right. Are there any other questions about anything, guys? If not, I mean, we're coming up on our hour. So Danny had a couple things here at the end about the DataSphere event. We did a DataSphere event together. Danny and I did a presentation not too long ago. So if you haven't seen our presentation we did, by all means, scan the QR code here, go to ca.com/the rest of that, and DataSphere 2020 US, or you just Google DataSphere 2020 US and you'll get the right answer.
Yeah, there's a lot of great session where we talk about generally where the trends are, and then it's pretty mind blowing for me as well, where we invited a lot of CIOs of companies to talk about their pressing issues. Because I'm sure that if you're a system integrator, you sell to your customers, yes, maybe we still talk to the security guy, but I'm very, very sure that a lot of times they will bring IT into this discussion. So to understand more, I mean, there's a lot of insights here because we have people like Equinix, companies like all those companies that support us. Like we have even Raytheon, right? I'm sure that you know Raytheon. They are very big in defense. They come and speak to us, speak on the solution as well. So a lot of good stuff to learn and understand what we talk about, like object-based storage and all this stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. And while everybody's online, I mean, if you wanted to download the actual report, we just put up a page today, Seagate stress testing with NX VMS and Seagate, where we go over the information that was on the presentation here, include links to the different pieces of technology that were used, go into the specific setups of the VM network and the storage configuration. And then the results are here as well. And at the bottom here, we have a PDF report that you can download that we've created based off this information. So by all means, take a look at our website. It's networkoptics.com/NX Seagate stress test, right? So that is something that you guys get to see before anybody else, because I just finished it earlier today. So yeah. If there are no other questions or comments, then we will let you guys go, and we appreciate your time today. And Danny, thank you for waking up early and joining us.
Thanks for inviting me.
In North America time zone. So
No
we try to do it a little bit earlier so we get all the way from West Coast to East Coast. So Danny had to get up.
I'm a morning person, so I'm okay. I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, so I'm
there you go. There you go.
Have a great weekend. Have a great weekend, everyone. Have a great rest of the week. Stay safe.
And thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.